The other thing that you just mentioned now was social media. Now, that's a huge thing. Everybody's talking social media and value and the importance of it. Do you want to just take us down that road for a minute?
Sure. Social media is a game changer for marketing companies today.
Okay.
Social media is something that you need to take very seriously because it's a huge undertaking. And so for our customers at iCare Pro, I was always cautious with the approach of social media just because I knew what their limitations were in terms of time and resources and how they could actually implement it well.
Okay.
For a company that has the resources to put into it, social media is the biggest opportunity today. So
Okay.
there's
Sorry,
yeah,
I just want to interrupt you there. You say resources.
yeah.
What resources do you need to put into social media to make it successful?
Okay. So let's take a step back and say like this: the average American is on social media for 45 minutes a day, right?
Okay.
So I go on Facebook and YouTube. My brother goes on Twitter. My mother goes on Instagram. People don't really go to different they might go to one or two, but they're not on. So the first
Everything.
time resource is just to realize that if you want to do social media well, you have to be everywhere, or you have to do at least certain ones very well. That's an effort. Number two is that if you put something up on your, let's say, Facebook feed and you have 1,000 people who like you might only have 60 people who see that post. So you cannot rely on just putting something up once in a while, because then people who are interested in whatever it is that you're giving out are going to be interested every day for 45 minutes potentially, right?
Right.
So it means creating a constant stream of information that is valuable, and then the value that you're creating is going to differ across platforms. So
Of course.
on Facebook, your video has got to be 25 seconds with text overlay, and on YouTube, your video should be longer, right? So
LinkedIn. What about LinkedIn?
so LinkedIn's going to be slightly longer than Facebook, but pretty much around more similar to Facebook. The idea is that there's going to be places where people are more interested in like passive forms of information, consumption, and then there's more active. YouTube's a little bit more active, like a little bit more
Okay.
interested in learning right now. And so, there's also just, mastering the communities on those, and making sure you're growing your audience base, making sure you're interacting with the communities. There's a whole, there's this concept called a social media, like a manager, like a community manager.
Yes.
And that would be like, theoretically, a company took it seriously would have a community manager for every platform. And then you would have content creators for every platform, right? So, I mean, you could
Right.
really take this very, very far. But even just taking one platform and doing it seriously and creating content that's valuable to your customer every single day, multiple times a day, building your audience, building your interactions, it's a full-time job. It's a very full-time job.
Absolutely. And do you think that people need to pay on these platforms, or should they just be updating their own profiles daily, weekly, whatever, or do you think
That's a
pay
good
social media?
So that's a good question. I think that with all marketing questions, there's always going to be um, layers and levels and different situations where you're currently holding. It's hard to give a definitive answer, but I would say that you do have to pay at least sometimes. Yeah.
That's beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, you can build your audience up at the same time and use it to
Yeah.
complement each other. But yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Okay. Now, talking about paying brings me to pay-per-click,
Right.
Google Ads. Now, you've also been very successful with that.
Yeah, no, I have. I'm also Google Ads certified, although it's probably expired since after taking the test, I don't believe I
Yeah.
actually retook it. But Google Ads are very similar to organic SEO, right? When somebody is looking on a search engine for something, you want to make sure you're there. That's going to be a qualified customer, right? That's going to be somebody you want to make sure you're the one talking to them. And there's two ways to do that. Number one, you can show up because you have great information about it and you've worked on it. And number two, you can show up because you pay Google every time you don't even pay Google, but you want to pay Google if somebody clicks on your ad.
Absolutely.
It's the ROI on pay-per-click advertising is very, very concrete because you're just advertising to people who want to see you, right? So there's going to be two forms of advertising. There's advertising that is Outreach, you're reaching out to people who are not currently looking for your information. That would be like social media advertising or content advertisers like Taboola or which are really great, by the way. And
Yeah.
that's a whole different story. But then there's pay-per-click advertising is really just a very basic form of advertising where you just like
Do you think it's
it's
very targeted?
yeah, it's extremely targeted. So, I mean,
So
one
you,
of the things I say about pay-per-click advertising or Google Ads is, I don't know if I would feel comfortable running my own Google Ads because of you can spend so much money if you're not careful, but it is a powerful tool that allows you to continuously evolve and become better and better. iCarePro's Google Ads has gotten very good because we have so many practices running for such a long time that we're
right.
constantly learning and changing and evolving and adapting to make that cost of acquiring a new customer very cheap. But yeah, it's a very targeted form of advertising.
And do you think like these call tracking numbers that people are having on their website and our Care Pros got on their website, do you think they're valuable?
Yeah, any information that you can get um, to to shed light on what's happening when people. My friend, my very close friend, works at a company called Glassbox. They're a tech company that just
Mhm.
closed their $40 million funding round, and their whole focus is higher level customer analytics of what's going on when somebody visits your website,
Okay.
and then creating a dashboard that really sheds a lot of light. The more information you have helps you adapt and change and improve. And so call
Absolutely.
tracking numbers are a fantastic way to learn what is working, what's not working, where are people coming from. If you're running print ads and ads on a specific website and Google ads and social media ads and all these kinds of things, if you have YouTube videos, all these initiatives, there are tons of work and money to get off the ground. The more you can assess them and say, well, this one is great because of, I got 10 new customers off of this one. So it's just super helpful for you to ascertain that. Otherwise, as
I
a
think it's
as
a
a
good,
marketer, yeah,
yeah. And I think it's a good indicator of your return on investment.
right. And I think that's the key, right?
And that's value.
As a marketer, you also have to always report back on the value you're bringing, right? And so
Correct.
if you don't have an idea of what you're doing, so it's going to be tough to get more budgets and more budgets and more budgets to do more and more things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you think, I mean, this is a difficult question. What do you think would be the biggest value add when marketing online?
It totally depends on the customer. I mean, I had a client who was an optometrist, and they had a side business. I've actually had a few of these
Mhm.
who had side businesses in different
Yeah.
areas, and they were like, "Well, can we pay you what we pay you for optometry, but marketing to do more stuff?" And I said, "You could, except for the strategy for that business is going to be totally different than the strategy for an optometry
Right.
practice." So every business has a different strategy, and you can do a lot for a specific business. Like you can take a business that's just starting, they have a lot of money, right? So they can do a
Right.
ton of things, but it might not be the same thing as another company that has a ton of money too, just because the strategies are different. Do you want to focus on social media? Do you want to focus on organic content? Do you want, I mean, there are so many examples of all of these approaches working. Um,
You think maybe that it's better to do a little bit of each than just
no,
concentrating
no,
on one?
no. I
No.
think it's better to just have a deeper understanding of what's the reason you're approaching your strategy in that way, and then really go as heavy as you can afford to into your strategy.
Okay.
I think that there are certain businesses that I have an uncle who just started a website that was all based on coronavirus. He
Yeah.
was importing masks and alcohol gel and all this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And he was investing a tremendous amount of money into it. And he was like, some people are telling me to write content. Is that the strategy? Well, it isn't, because content takes time. And right now you're
Right.
talking about so right now it's
Time sensitive issue. Yeah.
yeah. So if you want to do content, it has to be super high authority content, like an amazing, in-depth, informative, portal for how to know, like a symptom checker for, right? Or all the latest stats on, coronavirus in that country.
Around the world.
And
Absolutely.
then that might be picked up by media agencies, or that might be a form of advertising that you can use. But to say that you have, like, blog posts being beneficial, it's absolutely not.
Absolutely.
And then for an optometrist, it's very clear that they're not going to have unlimited funds to spend on marketing. And
No.
so they need to balance getting patients today with what's going to bring them long-term cheap patients over time. And so content, video content, Google reviews, that kind of stuff is very low cost and will build value over time. So for them, it makes the most sense to start there, do that really well, and
Right.
then move on to other things.
Okay. Perfect.